Hello, everyone. This is the AI Pressure Cooker Live. I'm Krasi, and today we are going to talk about something that has been really on top of my mind lately. What happens when AI decide before we do? And I wanted to share with you a recent experience, just an ordinary meeting that happened to me earlier this week. And maybe those of you that work in product or marketing or design would definitely recognize what I'm talking about. So we had the objective to actually figure out a commercial approach to a new product that we were building on. So we gathered together to discuss who is the product for, how are we going to position it, how are we creating value and obviously charging for it, and what does this even mean for success. And one person from the team actually came very well prepared. They had done the research with AI to narrow down the competitive landscape and came with the 3 pricing models that seem interesting for us to discuss. And the more I thought about what was going on in the meeting, the more I kind of felt like we are entering a frame that had been created by AI, because obviously AI selected which competitors to look at. AI had assumptions on where value is created. AI decided which options made it to the slide and which didn't. So in a sense, I was thinking that our conversation, or the start of the conversation that the team should have had shifted. And the decision in that perspective came earlier, at the point when AI had considered certain things and ignored others. So in this context, I think that many of us find ourselves in this scenario every single day, probably. And I wanted to dive deeper into the topic. So I invited Tobias Lichtenstern, who is the founding partner of Leap, and who works exactly in this intersection of service design, organizational transformation, and human and AI interface, to help me figure out what is going on and should we be actually all concerned. Tobias, welcome. Happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. And you brought a nice topic here. So I'm also excited where we will end up today.
Yeah, well, do you think that I have a valid concern thinking about where decisions happens these days, or is it just all in my mind and I'm totally getting it wrong here?
No, I don't think you're getting it totally wrong. I think I experienced the same things, or we all probably experience the same things when we kind of working with AI nowadays. We put a lot of power to AI already when it comes to working in the service product innovation field, where we think, AI can give us a good hand, and we give them, or they can feed us with a lot of informations where we used to, do it ourselves. So like you said, like they did a lot of research, like who are the competitors in your example, what's happening on the market already, who are the customers, and those kind of things we did back in the days, I would say, or we hopefully still doing it in a certain way. Kind of distanced us from the work we actually did, I would say. Sure, it helps us and we maybe be going faster, and but at the end I think it's all because we talk about decisions as well. It's hard to make a decision, and sometimes in my experience, if I do research and if I do like immerse myself with the product, with the customers, with the consumers, I have the feeling that I even have extra work going back to be like really sure what the AI delivered to me, to be sure I can make a decision. So I have the feeling sometimes it even costs me more work than before. So if I put up all my research out on the AI, and of course it can help me summarize it, like transcript it, create first patterns. I could like externalize all of these things, but at the end I have to take the decision, right? And if I present that to a customer or to a client, I really have to be 100% sure. So what I experience myself, I'm always going back and back and back to be really sure, and like to read the transcripts, double check the patterns, the qualitative analysis, like all these kind of things. to be 100% sure. So it kind of makes me more unsure or insecure than before. Sure, before it was maybe more work, but these days I would claim AI makes me insecure in my decisions.
That's a really interesting observation, because lately there is so much emphasis put on the AI output with the watermarking. Is this 100%
Yeah.
written by AI or not? And the whole debate, and that's for another time perhaps to dive into it. But I'm wondering, why aren't we actually more concerned of who defines this frame of work as opposed to the output? Because in my opinion, when AI takes over to some extent into the sense making, prioritization, justification, even alignment, I think that this is a really slippery slope. And I wonder, from your experience working with different kind of organizations, what do you see? Is this a recognized pattern that leadership is like thinking about, or is it very early days and we're all still figuring it out pretty much?
I think we are in a very explorative area still. I think we're in a time where AI adoption happens, so everyone has kind of a tool by its hand, if it's ChatGPT, Claude, or Copilot. What I see the most is that people have a tool in place now. But what actually changes now is that people are starting prompting, they're figuring out like what kind of, in the best way, what kind of work can I automate, where can I save time, where can I create value for myself. But with that, my opinion is that we might even create another silo with that, because like usually, or yeah, what I see is like a couple of organizations already have like an organizational AI layer where you can collect all the informations you have and like withdraw informations out of the system. But not all of them have it now. So what happens now is I think we maybe create another silo in organizations using AI, which happens because we haven't defined like what role should AI take in our team, in my personal work. Should it be a co-creator, or should it be an intern, or this kind of things I see a lot.
In that context, I actually started to think about that AI had turned into almost this invisible hire that we woke up to find next to us. And I was wondering if you were to actually ever draw not the reporting lines in the organization and how teams work together, but the areas of influence, where would AI sit?
Yeah, that's a big question, and you sent me some questions beforehand, right? And then you said like, where does AI sit in the organizational chart? And I thought this is very interesting, and I thought like, why do actually organizational charts exist? And I think that was also the reason when organizations started to scale and get bigger, to see where certain positions sit, maybe even responsibilities sit, and AI, I see more nowadays, not really in org charts. I see it more in flows. Like it's always I think the thing we have to decide between visibility and accountability, right? So I think org chart is more in the direction of I show who's accountable, or the accountability. So we see like, right, this is departments, and this is the head of, and then we have the CEO. And I think from the visualization standpoint, I think AI belongs more in that direction of where does it sit in workflows and charge in the system itself. So an org chart is not a system map for me. It's more like an org chart, right? To see like who's accountable. And I think in the other side, AI is more of a visible, or it needs to be more visualized, has to be made transparent when it comes to actually influencing processes, value the organization is actually creating.
If we think about service design, and I know that you work a lot in these areas, these days it's almost like by default expected that user research, the mapping of the journeys and all of those artifacts are going to be produced by AI, even to some extent the backwalk and the prioritization. And where we put our effort and impact areas, you name it. What is your take on this? Are we safe by pushing and giving so much responsibility in a way for AI to influence these decisions? Or do we have to pull certain brakes in some places, which is really critical to actually preserve some of the messiness, not to call these uncomfortable user behavior edge cases all the time, but to sit with the discomfort, really.
Yeah, I think my opinion on that is actually that I think we almost regulating AI too much right now, in that sense that it's a new technology and it's a new probably co-creator in the field, that I think we should more experiment. And I think we should create more of an environment where we can try things out and actually fail with AI. I think we are so fresh in that area, that it's okay to fail, right? And I think people should try it out. I think we're almost too afraid, and like we don't give a safe space or like a psychological safety around that thing. Back to your question as well, is it required, or does companies actually want to see that? Sure, they want to see it, I think, but they can't grasp it yet. So and from a service design perspective, yes, of course, it's a super powerful tool to actually make AI alive or make it visible in a way. That's what I'm talking about. Like, service design is not something we create org charts. We create systems, or we visualize systems to actually make educated decisions of like what should we ship out to customers and how we should design organizations to actually deliver that. But yeah, I think it's more and more coming in the direction that that expectations are rising. And
Tell me more about this failure. This really triggered something in me, because I'm thinking a lot about how we actually learn. So of course, if we don't fail, it's super
Exactly.
hard. And in a sense, AI is making everything seems more acceptable. It's always, in my opinion, prioritizing the safest route, not the
Sure.
riskiest to a large extent. But what is your take? How can we still continue to fail even with AI?
Yeah, I think we have to, as I said, we have to create a room for experimentation, right? We have to frame first use cases which are not, and this is what organizations are already doing, right? So like they frame like smaller initiatives they're doing. Unfortunately, not there where they create value now on the customer value, but also like internal, like they may be trying to align or improve certain processes.
Do you have an example of creating a safe space or sandbox for such a experimentation, i.e. failing with AI?
We had like recently a project where we worked with a producing company where we had to look at like how we can actually make the organization grow. That was actually kind of the hidden agenda, because there were like 400, 600 people, and I wanted to grow to like 900 people. And we looked at the different processes they already had in place with a data engineer, and also like with a data engineer, especially in that area. He created first sandboxes. He was like checking already what's happening within the company. And of course, there were like, I can't tell so much in detail, but of course, there were some first failures. Failures meaning like we don't have enough data there, like because AI is of course a big data topic, and that is actually something happens a lot, right? So we don't have the right data, we lose a lot of time there. But what I can see like from a failure when it comes to applying AI in a way is that we look like it's a funny story actually, because we were hired to actually see where we can include AI to make this grow happening, right? It's like usually the processes happening on the construction side or on the fabric. And also there we saw that applying AI is actually not necessary sometimes because it's just a little twist we have there. Even though like the data is not available or people, and we saw that the organization itself had so many wrong processes in place and so much intransparency about what's happening backstage, happening in the processes, that it was impossible to even jump in any conclusion how AI would solve that. And I think this is the failures where I can see right now from my perspective what's happening right now. There is like in this project, right?
I was recently working on something where the almost impossibility to understand the product or the product architecture or infrastructure was mind-blowing to me. How can we make decisions for digital services if we don't know how the product works, what is the most valuable flows, etc., what breaks at scale, and things like that. So when you also mentioned that organizations are equally blind when it comes to the processes, I've been thinking, oh my God, what is going on? And what did we find ourselves into? Such a mess. How did we end up here?
Exactly, and it's a mess. Like the thing is, like the nice thing would be if we reset everything to zero in organizations. That like, okay, we establish or we include AI in a greenfield approach, but it's actually not what's happening. So we have already systems in place, we have already like departments in place. The company is already creating value in best case, and we have to work in this like highly complex environment where a lot of people, systems, leadership, culture, that's already involved, and that's how like massively influencing my experience how we can create or like implement AI. And that is not an AI problem basically, because it has always been there. So like for the last 10 years, we're working on like digital transformation, implementing software solutions, whatever if you look back, like what problems we had like 10 years ago, it's like actually kind of the same problems we have right now. It's like departments not talking with each other. There's silos. There's miscommunication. There's no accountability. It's also a big disease nowadays in organizations. No one wants to take decisions anymore. We don't know what the customer is doing. We don't know where we create value. We don't understand like how, like where the value is created and how we actually set up the organizations towards it. And I think this is for me something I'm like always like, Jesus Christ, like we did this for the last 10, 15 years. We always had the same challenges, and now this huge technology comes and we're still doing the same mistakes. Looking at that. And there's also like, I'm like provocatingly saying service design has a renaissance where it's nowadays really a powerful approach to visualize, map out, and make things transparent.
And do you think that this could be also like an anchor when we talk about a true transformation, especially rethinking not just the processes, but more importantly, the go-to-market, the commercial strategy, back to my original story. There is so much work to be done, but so little visibility in the end of the day. So could service design play a bigger role in this volatile space to make things more connected, visible, but also be treated as a system as opposed to isolated compartments?
Yeah. So you mean also like you mentioned something with like commercializing it, right?
Well, I think that we are all facing this dilemma. How are we going to compete more successfully and differentiate? So a lot of pressure, in my opinion, right now is not so much into the tooling space or the features of the product, but really rethinking the business models, changing where the value is delivered, but also how we monetize it and what does this mean?
Absolutely. I think this is a very important point you make. I think also like all the big studies came out the last weeks from the big fives, and they also show that actually companies are not involving themselves too much with the current business models. So what they like when we talk about innovation, we talk about competitiveness, as you said, because I think the barrier to enter the market with backed up with AI for any like smaller startup or company or like even self-starter is so low. Um, of course, it depends always like on the go-to-market strategy then, because everyone can kind of build a website nowadays, or maybe even like a quick prototype, put it on the market. But yeah, and there is where the strengths actually lie in organizations which are more stable already and bigger, is to really have a look at like where is it easy to actually enter the market? Where do we have our competitive advantage, and how we can leverage that with AI, and make sure that we're still leading the market or making money with it, and making our customers happy at the end.
I
So
think
yes,
it's easy to build, but it is extremely difficult to win adoption and commercialize something
100%.
more than once.
100%. I think this is in any business. It's the harder part, right? I mean, you can build a website and say, yeah, you're doing this and that, but how you bring it to the market is the most critical part and most difficult, painful.
Yeah, absolutely. You spoke a little, you mentioned briefly at the beginning this idea of the co-creation with AI. And I know that many of us these days had woke up and turned into individual contributors pretty much overnight, especially those with a lot of experiences. And in that context, what had been bugging me a little bit about this individual contributor renaissance is are we now becoming just AI assistedly self-sufficient in a sense that we are jeopardizing to some extent what we had built in terms of practices of working together, collaborating, co-creating. So what is going on in that sense? How do we preserve that trait?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one, because I think with that was also a reflection I had this week, because I said I'm talking more to AI than I talk to my partners, to my colleagues, to my clients, let's say, because I'm like very much focused on like giving my AI as much information as possible to be less unsecure in taking decisions. Like I'm treating it and I'm treating it and I'm feeding it and I'm sharing personal information about my power, about my strengths, weaknesses, potentials, which is like the basic fundament of co-creating, right? To like let other people understand what you're good at, what you want to contribute, what you want to achieve. And so, yes, I think AI entered the stage as a co-creator. If you want to label them as a co-creator, it's also the questions like, maybe for example, I'm running a training on co-creation with Mercedes for a couple of years already, where we actually do exactly that. So I'm trying to immerse them for 2 days, like how actually co-creation happens and how does it feel and what does it actually mean. So like since the beginning of the year, everyone is keen on AI. So if I'm running these trainings, people ask me, can I use AI? Can I, like, if I go team exercise, can we use AI? Can we use this? And like at the beginning I said, no, it's like an AI-free zone, right? So we want to collaborate, we want to work together, you should experience like what really working together means. And I changed it and I said, okay, let's do an experiment. Let's say, like, okay, everyone who wants to can actually use AI, but they should report afterwards. How does it feel and how does it actually change maybe the collaboration, the co-creating part? And it's super interesting to see, first of all, the results. We split this training into 2 parts. We have like the first day is a classic problem space, and the second part of the day of the workshop or the training is kind of an ideation space. And of course, the experiences for people in those 2 fields are massively different, and also the use of AI is massively different. And when I resume this kind of this training at the end, we always do like an exercise. We said like, okay, the things we did in the this 2 days training, from like understanding where our potentials, strengths, um, weak spots, where how do we analyze problems, how do we make decisions, how do we create solutions, and how we implement them at the end. Where do you see and where do you further on want to work with AI? Where was the your most rewarding experience, let's say? And I can say that, of course, I was always in this kind of phases where they were collecting a lot of analyzing problems, or like collecting a lot of ideas. They loved it, but also like the decision part was always like, no, I'm not giving it to the AI. We want to take the decisions ourselves, like in the middle of this kind of exercise, of this training. And farther on, which was also important or like fun, was like I was always like triggering them at the end, saying like, okay, so we like 12 people in the room. We have AI, which would be the 13th person in the room. How would you what kind of profile would you give it to them? And so we also like sign up and like understand like we talked about like that it has different criterias. Like we said that there's these Molochs from the guy, I think he called Moloch, 4 different kind of profiles on AI, from the intern to the co-pilot. Intern means like I'm giving them tasks, he reports back to me, I check it, and then I continue. Or co-pilot is like he's flying automatically and takes decision for myself and does everything. So he knows everything, he does everything, and it's there. And that's also a very important part, I think, to in a collaborative parts, be like sure you define like what role AI takes and if working together, right? Like that was the conclusion kind of from this trainings, and I had done it like a couple of times this year already. There's always a said like, yeah, we want to be sure at the beginning if we're going to include AI in this in our work, be sure like what role does it take, how does it talk, how does it make decisions, if it makes decisions, and that always is kind of the human in the loop. And of course, and I think, yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, when I listen to you and I hear people say that when it comes to decisions, they want to be the one in charge, I think that we are delusional in a sense, because some of these decisions and the context and the framing, if AI is involved in structuring the space that we see, AI is making decisions, whether we want to admit it or not, and whether we like it or not. And to me, it's like absurd that we are still hang up on this idea of deciding, but at the same time, we are totally okay to give AI a responsibility to work with the customer sensitivity or the strategic thinking, the ideation. I think we are potentially underestimating the impact or even how decisions are being done, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, and I think we're 100% underestimating it. And I think, I don't know how you feel, but there was also like a recent research that people are feeling more drawn, like more tired, more unhappy since AI came into the work.
It's a pressure for sure, and I think that's why I actually started this series, the AI pressure cooker, because I feel like the expectation and the compression and this immediate result is so overpowering that we are not doing ourselves a favor if we are using AI to actually avoid the discomfort of the messiness, of the difficulty of starting with a blank page, of this idea of even the strategic courage to consider riskier options and think about what does this mean for our products, what does it mean for the user experience. So I find it on one hand super fascinating what we can achieve with AI, but on the other side, I think I'm becoming also risk averse myself, and I find that really unacceptable. So I want to continue to learn and fail, but at the same time, I feel like if I can take the easiest way out, of course I'm doing it. It's a human nature, and I don't know how to stop myself in a sense. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
when you magnify this and take it even further back to this idea of the individual contributor, I really worry, how are we going to build even more of these judgment capabilities that all of a sudden everyone is talking about, how important it is to protect judgment and taste and all of those intrinsically human capabilities. But
exactly.
if we find ourselves alone with AI, it's
And
I don't
I
know.
think, yeah, and I think because he's alone, I think AI makes us more alone. And like, if we can't talk about co-creating as well, I think it's really, yeah, setting us apart from the original intent of working together, and also like they redefine also like how we want to work in future. It would be our companion for sure, and it will not go away anymore. But also like from the kind of knowledge work, like writing an article, um, doing research, talking to customers. That talking to customers will, I think, has a renaissance as well. I think a lot of we see this as well with clients as well. They love it now because, of course, they can draw all the reports back from AI, right? They do the market analysis, competition analysis, and so on, the research. But like talking to customers is the thing right now. I have the feeling is coming back.
You
They
mean
want
in
to,
your organizations trying to preserve this
yeah,
customer sensitivity?
yeah, that's kind of exactly, yeah. This is exactly something I feel like it's very much something they love. They see the value in it. Um, yeah. Anyway, exactly. So
And
like
when
that's
it
some.
comes to
Mhm.
thinking about how we build services and products, do you think that there are safe spaces where we can actually rely more heavily on AI versus others? And I'm thinking about synthesis, positioning, prioritization, or do we always have to keep on the back of our mind those critical thinking aspects that super important to be present.
Yeah, I think it has to be, we have to be more critical at the end, and we have to also like be sure that we design the process well. Of like if we talk about like prototyping or ideation or whatever, where when do we give AI the stage? Like what kind of processes they should do, and when do we double check, or we can like even do, I think, like run workshops of like critical AI research session where we like challenge the things they found out, or the ideas they created. Sure, they create more ideas, there will be more like on a quantity level, maybe more ideas, but also like, like challenge them quality wise, see what we can actually make use out of it, to not give them too much power at the end. The
Mm.
question is like always like, do I want to give them so much power, and where do I hand over or take it back? And like, because at the end, someone will be accountable to take the decisions. If you're going to go to market with this and that, you can see that also. Like, I think there was like some politician in Germany created like an AI campaign, like a poster, which was so bad, and 15 people. She has 15 people working for her in a social media team, and they created like this AI slop thing, and then she posted it, and it was like people like, Jesus Christ, like who's in charge of it and who's responsible for it? And at the end, someone in the team, even not her, was responsible because she posted it. And I think, and at the end, there will be always someone responsible for it. And the question is like, yeah, are we able to take accountability or not?
And I think also we need to earn, in a sense, again, our position and the human layer justification, because obviously there are a lot of pressures these days for savings, efficiency, even speed. But at the end of the day, there is necessity or even a demand for such a human intervention in those critical gates. I spoke about the customer sensitivity, and I'm glad that you say that the renaissance is coming there, because I think that everything starts with this sensitivity of understanding the problem space before we can even ideate and think about solutions, but also
100%,
this
yeah.
idea of the strategic courage. How can we stop being so risk averse and really push innovation? Because now we have the tools.
Now we have the tool. Do we have the tools? The questions. It's the question.
But what
right?
do you
So-
think? Do you? Do we?
I mean, innovation is more about the mindset, right? And like, are we actually able to, as you said, like risk averse or not risk averse, to actually push and like choose a use case which is really has really the potential to change something in our organization or change something for the customer's life. That's more the question, right? So like, I think the tool we have, but I think innovative, we could have been innovative before that as well. But the question
So
is
what is stopping this mindset, in your opinion, to be more cultivated and develop further?
yeah, I think that resonates a lot with, but as the reason behind it is the psychological safety in organizations, like to actually, try something out, to fail, to maybe be wrong sometimes. I think this is something I see a lot. So people are afraid to stand up, try something out, be accountable at the end. This is what we said in the beginning here as well. I think we have the disease of organizations that no one is actually trying and taking decisions and say like, I'm going to do that now and try it out. It will change from organization to organization, from organization to organization. But this is one of the main reasons right now, is that we are in this kind of anxiety stage, I would say.
Is there any best practices that you can share when it comes to protecting this idea of human AI collaboration in service design? Something that we need to be like mindful the next time we put AI into mapping user journeys or doing the user research synthesis?
I mean, I can just comment this way from a very systemic perspective. I think it's important to think systemic in a way nowadays, and see like, okay, where we actually create value in organizations. That is also like a very impactful way, or like easy way to argue with certain ideas, and then also like reflect on like what is happening on an organization level as well. What kind of departments are involved, how decisions are taken, what kind of routines are already existing, where are bottlenecks, and see also like what kind of systems we have in place already. What is the culture, a huge thing, like how do people talk with each other, are they able to or willing to try things out? And that's also like something people find out quickly that level, like how far you can go with any initiatives you have on AI in the organization, if it's customer facing or if it's related to more efficiency or AI adoption. Yeah, I think we have to be more systemic nowadays, and also coming back to the previous question in the beginning of like org charts and stuff. I think we should go break the org charts and go more into visibility when it comes to who's taking decision, rituals, what kind of rituals are in place, and how do we want to include AI in the future of work.
Absolutely. I've been actually reading lately a lot of the work of Barry O'Reilly, and what interested me is how he actually frames, he calls it the T framework, with trait, task, and tool. And when we reflect on how we are actually applying AI to our product development or a service design, is we usually start with the tool. Then we think about, can we find a task that the tool can actually optimize or deliver? And only after we think about what is the impact on how we work, and is this the best work we can possibly produce, which is the backwards of how we're supposed to be working. What is your take on that? Yes. How can we reverse back this mentality and not be so fixated on the tool?
Yeah, that's exactly what I maybe referring also back to, like we have to understand where we create value in organizations, right? And like that can be on an organizational level, but also like on a personal level. I was recently talking with a friend which had like they had a co-pilot's training, how to create agents. And the agents were like they designed agents which were really generic, right? So analyze my EBIT or like very accounting wise. But he's like he's a team lead. So he was like calling me, said like, dude, like we had such a nice training, but I don't know how to apply it in my organization, like how to try it in my team. And then I said as well, like, look at how or where do you lose a lot of time? Like where do you and time was like an economical factor, and where do you create value for your stakeholder clients? And then look at that, and then design from that on, and then you see like what kind of tools you need, and how you can apply it. But the problem is, I see organizations that they already bought tools, and then now they said, okay, we have Copilot, you have to use this and that. But yeah, we have to just be more in this problem space again, like a step back. We already thinking too much about the solutions already. We don't take too much. But this exactly like again, this problem has been there for years, that we jump too much into solutions already. And as well with AI now, step back, have a look like what you want to solve, map it out, put some numbers on it, and then think about a solution. And usually the tool you have available. So then, but it's a good, it's a nice, the triple T, right? Is it called? He said.
Yes, and also like just like we changed the design thinking in a sense to introduce early on the problem framing as a key component before you accelerate and go through the process. I almost think that now we need one more step before the problem framing. This whole idea of exploration to even frame bigger the opportunity space, not to constrain yourself and immediately fill it with solution options, prototypes, you name it, but just to give yourself the freedom to truly explore and stretch the boundaries of how you understand the value, how you understand the experience, what do you want to do in terms of customer outcomes, and all of those things, in my opinion, they need to happen really at the very start of any product or service design work, so that we can then do the problem framing, and then we can accelerate and do all the magic with AI.
Exactly.
Thank you. I'm glad you agree with me. Any final thoughts? How can we release a little bit this pressure that is happening due to AI? Any advice? What can we do tomorrow or today, for that matter?
I mean, that's a good question. Like, how can we release the pressure? I think we have to, be again more human and see that this also working with AI is much more difficult than we expected in the beginning. Like, we have to just feel in and see like how does it actually work on us. Define maybe for us some use cases, how we can use it, and make work fun again. I think let's see like what kind of part of our work do we actually want to exclude or like put to AI, which kind of part is fun for us working wise, and we want to keep it. And then also organization wise, I think we have to be very holistic, systemic as change agents to see where we can actually create impact and make it still very human and create an environment where we can experiment and try things out. And I think then we'll be all good.
Oh, thank you, Tobias. I'm going to take away this idea of make work fun again and start not avoiding the human contact, but actually look forward to more of this, more of those imperfect conversations or sessions. So thanks so much for joining this morning, and thanks everyone for listening. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.